Well, guys, welcome back. It's Jesse. Hi, guys. Today we're gonna be reacting to some scary stories on TikTok told by some random people. Alright, guys, sit back and relax. Let's get to it.
This happened in Michoacan, Mexico. So this guy says that growing up, him and his older brother had to share a room. He says that they had a habit of always staying up till like 11 at night on their phones. He admits that every time he would see his older brother put his phone away, he did too, because he was so scared of laying in the room while his brother was asleep and him on his phone, like surrounded by darkness. He does say that he grew out of that fear of like his brother being asleep and him staying up. So after a few years, he did end up staying up on his phone till like 3 or 4 in the morning. He says that even though he would stay up till 3 or 4 in the morning, sometimes he would get a little bit panicked because we all know that not good things happen around that time. He does say that from time to time his fear would get the best of him, so he would end up putting music on his phone and falling asleep to that. He also admits that there were times where he would remind himself that he was alone, awake, everyone's asleep, total darkness, so he would literally put the blanket over his head and continue to watch videos. Even though his eyes would get red from how tired he was, he almost saw it like a challenge. He wanted to stay awake and like face his fear. So when he was around 7 years old, he says that he stayed up on his phone again, but this time he saw something weird through his window. He says that he could see something like flying back and forth. He said he did have a curtain on his window. It was like dark and brown, but at nighttime, since it was much lighter outside, you can see when something darker would pass by, which is how he would see that thing just flying back and forth. He said that at first he wanted to tell himself that maybe there were birds, but the way that he would see it flying back and forth, like it didn't seem like a bird. And also he said that he would almost also see them land on the roof of the house, and when he would try to take a peek, there would be nothing on the roof. He also told himself, like, what if I'm seeing these things because of how late I'm staying up, because he would get tired and he wouldn't go to sleep. But he says that he doesn't think it was him, because there was a time where he actually just removed the whole curtain because he wanted to see what the fuck was flying back and forth, and nothing would fly by, and there was nothing on the roof. He doesn't know how he grew the courage to do this, but one of those nights he had a plan. He literally opened the curtain to the point where only one eye was outside and one eye was inside the room, and he stayed there for a good amount of time and nothing passed by. And as soon as he quit, he saw something fly back and forth again. He thought to himself, like, what if they are witches? Like, what if they're messing with me? And of course they would mess with me because I'm 7 years old, and what if they want to take me away? He says that after a while, like whatever it was flying back and forth just became his new norm, and he really didn't worry about it anymore. That was until one night where he was laying in bed on his phone and he heard the craziest animal sounds coming from his dogs and chickens outside. And a few moments after hearing all that, he started to hear something coming from his window. Something that sounded like somebody was in pain, getting closer and closer. He got scared, but immediately opened up that curtain and looked to see what was outside, and again, there was nothing. And even though he didn't see anything outside of his window, his dogs and chickens were still going crazy. In that moment, he was so scared that he decided to pick his phone up and look up a video of like prayers and just let it play throughout the night. He said that in his crazy moment, he picked one and didn't really think about it, and when it started playing, the actual prayer was in Latin, so he didn't really understand what they were saying. He got a little freaked out, but then the priest in the video started talking normal and he understood him, but then the priest would go back into talking into that Latin language and almost like screaming it, so he was like, what the fuck is going on? He said that he was so scared that he didn't even have the energy to like get up, get his phone, change it to something different, because he just couldn't move. And in that moment is when someone on the other end of that room called his name. It was his brother, of course, who had woken up by the sound of that Latin prayer that the priest was screaming. His brother told him to shut that off because instead of sounding like a prayer, it sounded like something satanic, and he needed to turn that shit off now. He scared his brother, and of course he understood how scary it was, because imagine being in deep sleep and you get woken up by a priest screaming something in Latin. I would have had a heart attack. So he shuts it off and tries to go to sleep, even though he continues to see something pass by and hear that weird sound of that thing that was getting closer to his window. The next day, his brother did tell his mom what happened that night. His mom didn't get mad at him, but she did ask why he was trying to play a prayer in the middle of the night. All he told her was that it was because he couldn't go to sleep. He admits that he couldn't tell his mom what he was seeing through the window. It wasn't until years later
I
this
see a witch
conversation came up in his family, and that's when he he finally admitted to them what he would see at his window. He said his family didn't have this like crazy reaction because they thought the same thing he did when he first saw it, which was that they could have been animals. So again, this was only a few years later, which meant that they were now teenagers and still were in that same room. The family still lived in that same house. So because his family didn't have that big reaction, he was like, I'm gonna prove it to them that this is not an animal. So he decided that that night when he would see that thing in the window, because he was still seeing it, he was gonna wake his brother up and make him watch with him. Unfortunately, his brother saw nothing, and neither did he. Apparently, he believed that that thing would only appear when it was him alone and not when anyone else was watching. And that was the case, because when his brother did fall asleep, he ended up seeing that thing fly back and forth on his window. He also attempted to record what was passing by with his phone, but he says that it was so dark that his phone couldn't even make out the things he was seeing with his own eyes. He says that every night that he goes to sleep and he sees those things, he remembers that time where something was like weeping by his window, getting closer and closer. He says that today he's still living in that house, and fortunately, he hasn't seen anything, but he knows that eventually they're just gonna come back and he's gonna see these things again. He says that as he's typing this story, he is laying in his bed in the middle of the night and he is terrified that he might see them again, and also terrified that they may do something more than just fly through his window. He says he's gonna put his phone away and attempt to go to sleep, and hopes that these witches or whatever it is outside his window will eventually leave him alone. This story comes from Relatos Oscuros, and if you want to listen to it, this is what the video will look like.
Dang, is that Evan Mexico too? Guys, it's crazy. Be careful in Mexico, guys. Weird stuff goes on. I think Mexico is one of the most haunted places. Mexico and Japan. Right, those two are like most haunted, scary. It's a scary place of all time. But that, guys, I see like her. And you go back down to her page. I don't think it will be. No, it's not in the top. It's not pinned. But when I first watched her, me and the camera person, we watched her a long time ago. That's her brother used to hear her brother used to hear their mom talking outside of her window. And she did like part 1, part 2, part 3. I don't know if it's the part 4, but that's how we started. I started to watch her. She tells a lot of this scary story, guys. Make sure you go look at the page. All right, let's watch the next one.
Did you know that the hours between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. are known as witching hour? This is when the paranormal is at its highest, and even if you're not sensitive, you're bound to have some type of experience. These are the times where it's recommended for you to be in high alert and always remain protected. But of course, do I ever listen? No. So story time. When I used to work night shift at the hospital, there were nights where I would get out at 3 a.m. Now this was before COVID, so a lot of the stores were open 24/7. So on the nights that I would get out at 3 a.m., they were my favorite time to go grocery shopping. I would always hit up Walmart, and it was a dream because there was never anyone there. So 3 a.m. I pull up to the parking lot and I realize that there's no other cars there. It's just me. I pull up, I'm getting out. As I'm walking towards the front door, these 3 ladies just pop up out of nowhere. My first thought was, that's odd. There were no other cars here, but at the same time, they could have walked. As we make our way to the store, I walk in and I can see them in the light now. And I look at them and I realize that they literally look like they just crawled out of a sewer. And that's not me being judgy. Like, they literally looked and smelled like they just crawled out of a sewer. But I'm like, not my business. I came here to get what I needed to get and to get home. So as I'm walking through the aisles, I realize that these ladies are now following me. If not one, but all 3. Every aisle I go to, I'm running into them constantly. At first, I think that it's probably just a coincidence, but I'm hitting different aisles. I'm going from like the shoe aisle to the makeup aisle to like the dog food aisle. Like, I'm jumping around, and everywhere I turn, I'm running into these ladies. Now, I'm getting all types of bad feelings from these girls, but at the same time, I'm not thinking of a spiritual sense. I'm thinking of like a human trafficking sense. So I'm on high alert, and I'm like, I shouldn't have stopped here at 3 a.m. So I try to like hurry up, and these girls are like laughing and just following me everywhere. I try to rationalize it and just be like, maybe I'm just being paranoid, I'm tired, I'm sleep deprived, I'm gonna give them one more chance. So I kind of turn around and end up in the pajama section where I feel like I've lost them, as I'm kind of like digging through the racks, I look over and I see the girl walking this way, and she says to the other girl, there she is. So I'm like, great.
What the fuck? Why am I scared?
It's not in my head. Like, they really are following me. At this point, I just had to go to the front and try to get the attention of one of the workers. But when I get to the front, there's absolutely no one at any of the registers. And I know Walmart is notorious for not having people behind the register, but there's literally not even one person anywhere. Because I'm standing there, the one girl kind of comes up from behind me and says, Tatiana. Oh, Tatiana. She knew my name.
What the fuck?
At that point, it hit me. These things are not from this world. These things are the words. They happen to be lingering around in the parking lot. When they saw me coming in by myself, they decided to follow me in to see if they can attach themselves to me. I dropped everything that was in my hands and I ran to my car. The whole time I'm hearing like whispering and like weird noises coming from behind me. Like I'm getting chills, like just thinking about it now. But as I look back, there's no one there, but I'm hearing the whispering and all this stuff. And I run to my car. I practically like hit the gas to go all the way home. I kept thinking I was gonna see them like in my back seat. I get home and I'm like praying every prayer. Like I didn't sleep the rest of that night. Like I didn't sleep. I was like wide awake the whole night because I was freaking out. So these are things that are always lingering around. Mind you, it was 3 a.m. I'm by myself. They saw me as an easy target. Thankfully, they weren't able to hitch a ride with me, but it's so easy, especially if you're under the influence and if you're outside, you're extremely vulnerable. You have no idea what's out there just lurking and waiting.
Guys, you gotta be careful out there, man. Especially what happened to her. So that's why I don't go outside at 3 a.m. I know God is by my side, but you know, just to be safe, I don't mess with witches. I don't like talking about them too. I just have a feeling. Well, this kind of like known. Well, I don't think it's known, but like they know when you're. Oh, like okay, I'm not talking about it. Well, there's like if you talk about them, they could hear you talk about them too. So guys, also like they would take the black cats. That's why they have a bad reputation. But they'll take the black cat, or they'll take like the cat, right? And they will take out the cat's eyeballs, and they will like to cut it, right? They'll put it like contact in their eyes, and they'll see what the cat sees. Cause like the animals can see stuff that we can't see. So there's a rumor that they do that stuff. But I don't mess with no witches. I stay home at 3 a.m. Yeah, let's watch this as the next one.
In the early 19th century, the Bell family of Adams, Tennessee, became the center of one of the most famous hauntings in American history. It all began when John Bell, the family patriarch, encountered a strange creature on his farm, a dog-like beast with the head of a rabbit. Soon after, the Bell family began experiencing terrifying supernatural events in their home. The source of these disturbances was said to be the spirit of a woman named Kate, later known as the Bell Witch. She tormented the family with eerie noises, violent attacks, and even spoke to them, taunting and threatening John Bell. Betsy Bell, John's daughter, was a frequent target, with the entity pulling her hair, slapping her, and leaving bruises on her skin. The haunting grew so severe that it caught the attention of General Andrew Jackson, who visited the Bell home and reportedly fled after a terrifying encounter. John Bell eventually died under mysterious circumstances, with some claiming the Bell Witch herself had cursed him. For more spine-chilling stories of real-life hauntings, be sure to like and follow.
Damn, the Bell Witch. I think I heard about that case too. John Bell, that sounds really familiar. So you guys, be careful. I think this is all about the witches and witch hours. Okay. Well, I guess let's watch this next one.
What would you do if you saw this in the middle of the night? If you're near your high, I usually talk about some pretty scary stuff, and I actually have an email where all of these stories are submitted. And let me tell you, some of these stories are so effing scary. I have a hard time not thinking about them before I fall asleep at night. And this is one of them. This is definitely one of the shorter submissions that I've gotten, but it's definitely up there with one of the scariest. So let's get into it. This person did not specify if they wanted to remain anonymous or not, so I'm just going to keep them anonymous. But the person who sent me this email starts off the entire thing by saying that this not only happened when he was 6 years old, but it also happened in the middle of the night. I'm talking around 2 a.m. kind of deal. And on this particular night, he was in his own bed, tossing and turning because he could not sleep. Now, he couldn't sleep because he was so scared, which he says was a very normal thing, and I feel like that's a very normal thing for like 6-year-olds anyways. And the person who sent me this email specifically includes that he was one of those kids that was scared of everything, like the bugs, the dark, clowns, the whole 9 yards. After a while, he decided to get up and go to his parents' room, which normally calmed him down once he got into the room and like settled in. But this night, he just couldn't because he, and I will quote, felt like there was something wrong. And for context purposes, the door to this room always stayed open. Now, the positioning of the room in particular was very odd in my opinion. His parents' room sat at the top of the staircase, so you can pretty much see anyone who's walking up and the back of anyone who's walking down, if that makes sense. The person who sent me this email was just absolutely fixated on the stairs this night. And he starts to actually drift off into sleep until he sees a woman with long, pin-straight hair in a nightgown walking down the steps. And immediately he's frozen in fear because he does not recognize this person. It's also included in the email that all of the women in his household had thick, curly brown hair. And again, this was pin-straight hair. And as this woman's head begins to disappear down the stairs, he is still frozen in absolute fear, unable to move, unable to wake his parents up. The moment that she's no longer visible to him, he begins to hear noises coming from the kitchen. And he states that he cannot describe the noise that was coming from the kitchen and the noise that this thing was making, because it wasn't like cupboard slamming or glasses shattering or things being moved in the kitchen itself. It was like a bang, but it didn't sound like it was coming from the kitchen. But from my understanding, this was pretty much the entire first floor was just the entranceway and then the kitchen. And over the years, the person who sent me this says that he has been trying to cope with, you know, maybe it was a nightmare, maybe it was just a very vivid hallucination, maybe it was a vivid dream, like, I don't know. But he cannot shake the feeling of how real she looked. And he is almost positive that it was not a dream, it was not a hallucination, and it was not something that he just saw out of pure imagination. He's convinced that what he saw was real. Now, I personally don't know what this could have been, so I'm very curious to see what you guys come up with in the comments. But anyways, that's going to do it for me. Stay tuned for more ghost stories.
Dang, I'd be scared. That's what I would do. I would go under the cover and everything. Cause that's the layout of the house. Sounds pretty scary. I don't know. I will not live there. Sounds scary. I hear the noises. So I think it was trying to make him come out of the room, right, to see if you will go to the kitchen, but really you're just there outside of the door. Then you guys gotta be careful. Gotta be careful out here. And let's watch this next one.
If you're laying in bed and you actually want to sleep tonight, then you should skip this. For the rest of us who like scaring the shit out of ourselves, welcome.
Watch it.
When I was a kid, my best friend asked a Ouija board how old she was going to be when she died. Okay, spoiler, it told her 22. Probably wondering, did she die at 22? I'm going to tell you a story that only 3 people know. Well, 2, because one of them is dead. The story starts about 20 years ago. Do we want to know the story, guys? Christina and I were about 12. We were inseparable, and we used to hang out with her older sister all the time. We were at their house a lot. Looked like a normal suburban house on the outside, but I swear you walked in and it was like a portal to the underworld. This house scared the absolute shit out of me. I would hear screams coming from the attic, and I would look down this long, dark, creepy hallway, see dark figures like motioning up when I'm trying to sleep at night. To make matters worse, we would sit in her room with the lights dim, pull out the Ouija board, and play all the time. But here's the thing, it only ever worked for Christina. It was like she had some weird connection to it. Naturally, her sister and I always thought this was fake, and she was just doing it for attention, because it would move so fast all over the place, telling us everything. Never worked when we did it alone, so we were a little bit suspicious. Whatever ghost was on the other side of this had diarrhea of the mouth. This was not like you see on the horror movies where it's like, oh, this is slowly moving to yes or no. Like, no, this was like a T9 texting expert ghost that word vomited constantly. So one day we had just finished watching Big Fish, and in that movie there is this creepy old witch, and you can ask her how old you're going to be when you die. Christina loved this idea. Next thing you know, she's pulling out the Ouija board and immediately asking, how old am I going to be when I die? Planchette slowly starts to move towards the numbers, and it hovers over the 2, and then it takes a little bit of a movement back and comes right back to the 2. Christina didn't even skip a beat. Yeah. She grabs her red notebook that she wrote down all of the answers the Ouija board said in it, wrote down, age I'm gonna die, 22. completely calm. Little did we know.
Why are you calm about it?
Something was set in motion and some weird shit started happening for the next 10 years. About a year after the Ouija board incident, Christina's middle school boyfriend tragically died. He was babysitting his 3-year-old little sister, hanging a rope swing for her in the backyard. The parents got home, found the little girl screaming in the backyard, looking at her brother hanging by the tree. He accidentally got tangled in the rope and hung himself. He had been dead for about 3 hours. While Christina was upset about this, she wasn't hysterical, more so distant. And she said to me, I think I'm gonna see him again soon. I just don't see myself growing old. I can't be that upset about it because something like that might happen to me. For the sake of being able to sleep at night, I wrote off a lot of these things. Christina and I grew apart over the years. A couple of other creepy things happened here and there, but for the most part, I think she had a pretty normal life. She got a job, got a fiance, seemed pretty happy from what I could tell. So now we're about 21 and Christina's wedding is coming up. I didn't go to the wedding, but I saw this footage later. Christina's standing at the altar, all smiles, having just been married, trying to take photos with her family. Softly in the background, you hear a little girl singing the Itsy Bitsy Spider. Christina yells super loudly, Kenna, it's time to take photos. And the camera just slowly pans left. And then you get a great view of this beautiful little flower girl sitting in a pew, holding a Bible upside down, singing the Itsy Bitsy Spider. She shuts the Bible, takes a couple of steps towards the aisle, and slowly walks forward. I shit you not, this 3-year-old looks up at this bride and says, Christina, are you gonna die soon? Freaked out when she heard this, which...
What the fuck?
Would be a normal response, but I heard her talk about death so many times as a teenager and just how it didn't faze her that it was a little bit odd to hear her talking about it like this. I really think it's because she was 5 months pregnant. Things had changed for her.
Yeah.
About a year after the wedding, Christina was at a cabin with her family in the mountains, having some celebration. Everyone was there, including her newborn son. It seemed like one of those days where nothing could go wrong. Her family always had a 4-wheeler that we would take around the mountains and have a really good time on. At some point in the afternoon, her and a friend decided to take it out for a ride. But that day, something was different. As they rode through the trails, everything seemed all right until Christina screamed. The brakes aren't working.
Man.
They flew off of a cliff. Both of them were rushed to the hospital. Christina didn't make it. She died on the way there. 22.
Damn, guys. That's why you guys, I don't know, really don't play with this type of things, you know, especially with the Ouija board. Well, this sounds so familiar. I feel like I heard this story. I feel like the camera person told me this story. It sounds so familiar. Unless I'm having big deja vu. I mean, I heard this story before. But that was just sad. I don't play this type of things, so I don't play the Ouija board, or saying I wouldn't ask something like that. I guess we're fine. But I think that do all for today's video, guys. The do pretty. This is a good one. I think my favorite one was the first one I saw. The witch one was pretty good. The ones after that, I actually like the Naruto. They were actually pretty good, guys. Hey guys, I'm gonna watch more of them. I also now they're all gonna be on my For You page. But guys, if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you guys like, share, comment, and subscribe. For almost to 400 subscribers, guys, we'll go to Gravity Hills. Gravity Hill? Yeah, Gravity Hill or the other place. We will know, guys. We're trying to choose it. Figure out which one is more better. Yeah, I think that's it for today's video. Make sure you guys subscribe, like, share, and comment. I need to do it. Yeah, I'm just repeating myself over and over again. Alright, guys. Peace out, guys.